One of the cool things about following Caitlin Clark, the Indiana Fever, and this explosion in women's basketball so closely is getting to watch more closely some of the other women who are already in the WNBA and the stars of the league because those ladies can hoop. Asia Wilson is nice. She is so good. Her touch is beautiful. The way she runs the floor, not to mention Jackie Young, an excellent two-way player, so impressive. And Kelsey Plum with her shooting and shiftiness, putting those three on the same team is just a tough combination. I don't think anybody really expected the Fever to beat the Las Vegas Aces, the defending champs. In fact, Indiana was a 16.5-point underdog going into this game. So that gives you a little insight as to what the chances were. And let's be fair to the Fever as well. This is a schedule loss in many ways. I don't want to be too harsh about anything that happened in that game. Second night of back-to-backs after that explosive performance in Los Angeles. So it's to be expected. And Caitlin Clark struggled in this one. She just looked like she didn't have her legs and that she was dead tired, really. That was a rough performance all around. But, credit to the Aces and that team and those players because Asia Wilson is a monster. And here's the thing, we compare big to big. It's not fair necessarily, and she's only in her second year. But the gap between Wilson and Aaliyah Boston it's not even measurable. It's not even a measure. It's a chasm. It's not even close. The speed that which Wilson plays with, the force Wilson plays with, the touch Wilson has, it's wild. It's wild, the difference. And that's my biggest concern with the Fever, to be honest, right now, is the fit between Boston and Clark. Because that goes from game to game to big picture, too. Because, Indiana took Boston with the number 1 pick last year. She was the Rookie of the Year last year. The team was built around her last year. That's a tough thing to just, move to the side. And Aaliyah Boston played much better in that Sparks game. Much, much better. But the fit is just clunky. Boston does not play fast enough. And the way her game is, she has to be in the way of Clark to be her most effective. I've said this a million times, but I really believe, for Boston to be at her best, you're going to take away from what makes Clark at her best. And Clark is better. The ceiling is higher with her. Now, the fits next to Caitlin that I'm encouraged by are Temi Fagbenle, who has been a revelation. Her rim running, the way she gets up and down the floor, her and Caitlin have a nice synergy. You even saw that early in this game. And Kelsey Mitchell. Kelsey Mitchell is a born bucket getter, a born and proven scorer. And I really think there's a chance for Caitlin Clark and Kelsey Mitchell to form a super dynamic backcourt, like a special backcourt. Now, again, the Fever have just had a rough schedule. I mean, this was only the Aces' 4th game of the season, and somehow it was, the 7th game of the season for the Fever? A condensed schedule. I think they played, 6 games over the last 10 days or something like that, and a back-to-back. You could just see it wearing on them. So it's the kind of one, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. I think that's the philosophy for the Indiana Fever on this one. But the big concern for me is the fit between Boston and Clark, no question. But on the other side, it's worth getting the recognition and the shine out there to some of the other women. Like Asia Wilson is incredible. It's incredible. I don't even look up her stats. She had to have close to 30 points and double-digit rebounds. And I feel like she made every shot she took. It felt like that watching the game. And, she got that shoe deal before the game. Becky Hammond, the coach of the Aces, sort of stuck up for the players. And I get the sentiment, the black and white thing. I really don't think it's really that at all. I think the thing with Caitlin Clark is the way she invigorates a crowd, the way the crowd lights up. There's a difference between the internet and real life. We keep talking about what people are saying on the internet, and then you see this stuff in real life, like the shot against the Sparks on Friday night. and the Jordan shrug that Clark did and the reaction. Look at the people in the crowd. It doesn't matter what color they are. They're excited. They're getting into that. That's a moment, right? Like that was a moment right there. That's an iconic image right there. And that's how people react when they watch Caitlin Clark, which is a big reason for her popularity. In fact, that game against the Sparks, I believe there were more people in attendance than for any Lakers game in LA. For any Lakers game in LA. At the same time, I at least get the sentiment that there have been a lot of good players in the WNBA and women's basketball who haven't necessarily gotten the shine, but it's happening now. And I think that's the one of the cool things, one of the cool side stories to what's transpiring in this Caitlin Clark phenomenon is you get to see Asia Wilson 29 points, 15 boards, plus 22 on the floor, 12 of 18. Scary. And then Kelsey Plum, she's shifty and a shooter. She had 20. And Jackie Young, I was really impressed with Jackie Young. She had 22 points. I mean, the Aces are just levels above the Indiana Fever right now. But I'm not going to, that's when you want to toss in the garbage can, move on to that next game against the Sparks. The schedule has to ease up for the Fever now. I mean, they've only played essentially great teams the whole season. They've played them in a condensed schedule. Now they get to go home. They get the Sparks again. Then they get Seattle again. And then that big game against the Sky on Saturday afternoon, which will be highly anticipated. And, Angel Reese was involved in something today against the Sun. I think the Sun wound up winning that game. But there was a play in that game where Reese got thrown to the ground by Alyssa Thomas, threw Reese to the ground. So it's not just Caitlin Clark who's on the receiving end of the rough play for rookies this year. Angel got some of it right here. Look at this. Like wrapped around the neck here area and thrown to the ground by Alyssa Smith. So that was one of the most talked about moments of the night. So it's not just Caitlin who's on the rough end of some of the rookie physicality. Obviously, that was bodies banging inside versus perimeter defense and everything. But my main takeaways, I am concerned about the Aaliyah Boston fit next to Caitlin Clark, and really just Boston's play overall. She doesn't finish enough. She doesn't move quickly enough. And then obviously her best stylistic game sort of clashes with Clark. They played much better in that Sparks game, so hopefully they can recapture that, but it's definitely a big concern for me. Kelsey Mitchell is a great fit next to Clark. I think that could really work. And Fag Benley is a great fit next to Clark. I think that could really work. And then on the other side of things, there's a reason the Aces are the champ. And there's a reason, Dawn Staley so definitively calls Asia Wilson the best player in the world.